So in the last video, we were talking about this invitation to the river, this invitation to say yes to God, this invitation to surrender, this invitation to say yes to a reality that is bigger than reality as you've known it, maybe bigger than your story as you've known it. The disciples asked Jesus, Lord, teach us to pray. Teach us how to be caught up in this broader story. Teach us how to be connected with the divine the way that you're connected to the divine. And Jesus gave them a prayer, this prayer that is a pattern for all of us in our own attempt to connect to the divine. And so in these next few videos, I want to talk about this particular prayer that Jesus gives the disciples to pray. And the first line begins like this: Our Father, our Father. So at the very top of this is an acknowledgement that we exist in a relationship, of creator and creation, that we exist in a place of dependence, not of independence, but dependence. We need God, we need each other, we need help. We are part of a community, we are part of a constellation of relationships that give us meaning. And so we start by acknowledging that. We start by acknowledging that we are first and foremost children, not in an infantile way that strips us of agency, but in a way that, especially right now, I find to be so powerful and important to remember that everybody is a child, that everybody is a product of play, fear, insecurity, trauma. Everybody is still a sixth grader wandering through the lunchroom on the first day of middle school trying to figure out where to sit down. Everybody has this same capacity for wonder, for creativity, for touch, for tenderness. That's how we exist. Now the language, our Father, and I am going to camp out here for just a minute, because I know, especially in a time right now where there's a lot of conversation, and I think conversation that rightly we have because we are the products of many different kinds of relationships. Some of us who have had healthy relationships with fathers, some that have had not so healthy relationships with fathers, maybe something very much in the middle. So then just the very heart of this address, our Father, for some people, I understand, can be challenging. So I think where I would want to start would be to say that when I pray this prayer, what we call the Lord's Prayer, which really is our prayer that Jesus gave to us, I like to pray the Our Father because that is the language my tradition has given to me, and it is still the language that most Christians use when they pray this prayer. So as a nod to that community and to that tradition, I still like to use the language of our Father. But one of the things I said in the first video that I cannot stress enough, it is not the language that we use to speak about God that matters nearly as much as the reality of our experience with God. Words matter, but there is a depth of meaning, of reality, of being that is in fact deeper than words. And that is the river to which we are invited. The whole thing is about participation and jumping in. Part of what's so wonderful for me as a Christian about the broader story of Scripture is that we're given all this lovely metaphorical language to speak about God. And it is metaphor because it is Jesus who says, and I am I'm feeling something on this. It is Jesus who says, when he has this conversation with a woman at the well, this is a person who's very much outside of his tradition, outside of his own community, outside of his own story. And that relationship, that conversation is scandalous within that text for so many reasons that I won't get into now. But I will tell you that the context of this conversation, like the movement on which it hangs, the hinge point, is when they have this little exchange because, the woman is saying to Jesus, hey, my ancestors, my people, they say you're supposed to worship God on this mountain. Your people say that you're supposed to worship God in Jerusalem. And it's kind of like, what gives? And Jesus says something that to this second I find unbelievably profound. Jesus responds by saying, the time is coming and now is when it's not going to be about where you worship. I'm paraphrasing now. It's not going to be about the place. It's not going to be about the location. It's not going to be about the geography. It's not going to be about those kinds of details, that kind of particularity. Jesus says the time is coming and now is when the true worshipers will worship God in spirit and in truth. God is spirit. God is a spirit. Those that worship God must worship God in spirit and in truth. Now, I want you to think about what that really says to us, especially in this charged moment that we're in, where people are having a lot of conversations around gender and how people identify, how they identify others, how they choose to self-identify. God is a spirit. Those that worship God must worship in spirit and in truth. There is a reality that is so rich and that is so deep that it transcends all of our human categories and divisions. One of the things I love about Christianity at its best, it is a tradition where bodies are of central importance. Bodies are everything. How or whether or not we choose to honor our own bodies and the bodies of others, well, that's everything. It's that's a scandal of the Christian tradition, is that there is this emphasis on the body of Jesus, the resurrection of the body, the idea that bodies matter and faith has to be embodied. It has to be, it's not head knowledge, it's about practice. It's about, again, talking about in the first video, a way of being in the world. So it's not that our bodies don't matter. It's not that our body parts do not matter. But I think this is so important. But those ways of speaking about our bodies, those ways of speaking about our parts, are not of ultimate significance. Not that they don't matter, but they're definitely not of ultimate significance. Y'all, God is not a man or a woman. What a ridiculous conversation to have. If there is this force of love and logic that created everything, if there is in fact a divine love that's at the center of all created things, then clearly I would like to think we could agree that this divine being, this divine love, is not sitting around somewhere and has genitals like we have and all the thing. And here's where I'm going to get a little bit ranty for just a moment. Part of the reason that I think people get so threatened and go so bananas in some of these conversations about gender and how people identify on a spectrum, and I don't have time to even get into all of the complexities of that in nature. We'll just leave it where it is for right now. is that I still feel like so often we, like, as humans, we gravitate towards this middle school boy way of looking at the world, in which everything is about genitals. Y'all. So we don't have to be ashamed of our bodies. We don't have to be ashamed of our genitals. But does it ever strike you as weird that people are so endlessly preoccupied with genitals and genital sexuality? You know, and the reason I say like feels so middle school is that it feels like this whole, like, you know, do you have a big penis or a small penis? Do you have a big butt or a small butt? All these things stuff goes in and out of fashion, right? So everybody was getting the butt implants. My daughter's gonna make fun of me for this. I'm probably not gonna use the language right, but some kind of butt implants that everybody's getting them out. So sometimes it's fashionable to be meaty, and other times it's fashionable to be skinny. And it just feels like a giant middle school cafeteria where everything's like about boobs and butts and like, do you not hear? God is a spirit. They that worship God must worship in spirit and truth. Thankfully, there is a reality that's different, that's a little deeper than middle school boys. I love middle school boys if you're watching, in the cafeteria. Thankfully, there is a reality that is deeper than you walk into the room and Creator doesn't have some kind of commentary on, you know, like how you've taken care of yourself or what work you've had done, or like, no, like what God says is, it's good to see you. It's good to see you. And I'm pretty certain that if, again, this force of love and logic exists in the cosmos, that it is not staying up late at night freaking out about people's genitals one way or the other, not freaking out about the way that we identify ourselves. There is a reality that is bigger than that. And one of the things I love about Christian theology at its best is that it starts from this simple premise. We're created in the image of God. Therefore, we are children of God, right? We're children of God. That's our reality, child of God. However else we go through this world, as fathers or as mothers, as brothers, as sisters, as friends, however we experience this continuum of human relationships, there is a more fundamental reality that we are beloved as children of God. And that's one of the reasons that for me it's so important that we grasp. However it is that you call out to God, however it is that you relate to God, there is a moment where Jesus is weeping over Jerusalem, and the Gospels say that Jesus there, as he's weeping, he's torn, he's lamenting. He says, Jerusalem, oh Jerusalem, how long I have wanted to gather you the way the hen gathers her chicks. It's maternal imagery. The prophets are full of maternal imagery for God. But there's also beautiful images of God as Father. Understand that the point always is that you start from the premise that you exist in a relationship with the divine, and we acknowledge in humility our dependence on a power that is greater than ourselves. Whether or not we step into that reality, I want to say one more time, is deeper than words. Again, words matter. Stella is feeling this right now, I think. Words matter, but they're not of ultimate significance. The language for how we speak about God is not nearly as important than whether or not we step into the divine reality. If we jump into that flow, the Spirit and the bride say, come. If we jump into the river. So, in that spirit, I want to encourage you that however you need to speak to God, if to speak to God as Father, I believe that God is a father to those who need a father. To speak to God as mother. God is absolutely a mother. God absolutely mothers us where we need mothering. God is a friend to the friendless. Jesus is a friend to the friendless. Jesus is, and Jesus will always be, anything and everything that you need him to be. Whatever provision that you need, whatever grace that you need, whatever strength that you need, it's all found in God. And everything that is good and beautiful, everything that is deeply human, all of these things speak of the one who created you in perfect love and who calls you by your true name, which is what the next video is going to be about. We're going to talk about your true name. I want you to just, for right now, grasp the fact that the fundamental reality of your existence is that you are created, that you are created good, created in the image of God, and you are created for a relationship. And it is out of this relationship, a relationship in which there's abundance, there's no lack. You are not lacking. You are enough and you have enough because you exist in this reality of connection with God. The moment that we step into that, and the moment we start to live that way, as if we are connected to a reality that's larger than ourselves, and a God who is bigger than all of our petty differences and squabbles, like we just connecting to that reality, realizing actually that reality itself is based on relationship, that our reality is based on a relationship, that the reality of the world, of all created things, is relationship. It's relationship, right? So that everything that we see, all the patterns in creation, the cosmos, everything exists in relationship to each other. More I'll say about that in the next couple of videos. But understand that you were created out of that kind of relationship, for that kind of relationship. And again, the moment that you begin to speak to God as your father, as your mother, as your creator, as your source, do you understand that that's what all of this is about? It's about being connected to the source. Being connected to the source is more important than the language you use to describe the source. Again, words not unimportant. But deeper than the words is the reality of being connected to a life-giving source that sustains us, that holds us, that keeps us, and that out of that relationship, out of that community of divine love that exists in God as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we exist now, and we can begin to live in such a way where we invite others into that same kind of flow, into that same kind of energy, that same kind of grace, that same kind of rhythm of divine love, that others can come to live out of that place of dependence and trust and vulnerability and mutuality, of confidence, of trust, just the way that we have. This is just a little bit of what it means to start from this premise that we are now called, as Jesus was called, to relate to God as our divine parent.